Welcome to This Week in Legal Blogging for December 3rd of 2020, in which we talk with leading bloggers from across the legal industry. This program is presented by LexBlog, providing lawyers with turnkey digital publishing solutions and strategic consulting for 16 years. Find out all about LexBlog at lexblog.com/products. I am Bob Ambrogi. I'm your host. I publish the blog Law Sites, where I write about legal technology and innovation. Also have my other podcast, Law Next, also focused on innovation in the legal world. And just a reminder that all of these programs, we've been doing these for a while now. As a matter of fact, I went and counted them. We've done 22 of these in the last few months. They're all available on YouTube, youtube.com/LexBlog. So go back and watch them. We've got a lot of great interviews with a lot of really fascinating legal bloggers. Also available as an audio podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are sold. Today, I'm very happy to have as my guest Leonard Gordon, who is chair of the advertising and marketing group at the law firm Venable. And he is also the editor of the blog All About Advertising Law. So Len, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Bob. Great to be here.
Nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So before we get started, well, I'm going to tell you a bit of trivia first, because at one time I was trying to research which law firm had the first ever website on the internet. Do you know what law firm that was?
I do not.
It was Venable.
Was it? That's awesome. Well, we're the technology firm, right? So.
Yeah,
great.
It was way back. When was it? I figured it out once. I don't know. It was a long time ago. 1994, 1993, I think it was. Venable was the very first firm to have like a graphical website back right
That's
after
awesome.
the web got going. So good for them. But before we talk about your blog, why don't you tell us a little bit about your practice and what you do?
Sure. Thanks. So Venable has a large advertising and marketing group. I head it. I joined Venable in 2012 after 7 years at the Federal Trade Commission, where I did both advertising and antitrust work. Since getting to Venable, I do mostly advertising work. I still do some antitrust work, and most of my advertising work involves representing companies and individuals in FTC investigations and litigation, CFPB investigations and litigation focused on marketing and advertising issues, DOJ investigations, state AG investigations, but the FTC is probably the biggest part of my practice. It's been a good time to be in that practice. The FTC has been very, very busy. So we also do a lot of counseling, trying to help clients avoid FTC scrutinies. And then we also do a lot of work in the sort of the promotions field, contests, sweepstakes, things like that. And one of my partners is really sort of a national expert in that, and that's a nice add-on to our marketing practice.
Yeah. Have there been specific sort of pandemic-related issues that have come up over the last 8 to 9 months? Has the pandemic in any way affected advertising issues?
It has. Two sort of big chunks. There was a fair amount of price gouging investigations and litigation. So to the extent that you're advertising a price, that certainly, and it's a consumer protection issue. So I think of advertising really as almost anything consumer protection. So there was some of that. We did that. And then we've helped clients respond to warning letters that the Federal Trade Commission has sent about claims that companies were making regarding products that might help you not get COVID, recover more quickly from COVID, other COVID health-related claims. I mean, the FTC has sent, I think, 150 warning letters to companies, which is an unprecedented number of warning letters. They might have sent 150 warning letters in the last 10 years, maybe last 6 years. But it's been interesting because of the importance, I think, of COVID and the widespread nature of some of these claims. They decided to go with a warning letter approach. If companies don't respond to the warning letter, they are probably going to get sued, and they've sued some of them for COVID-related claims. We had a couple of clients that we helped sort of clean up some loose language on their website related to dietary supplements that are good for you, but the marketing maybe went a little bit too far on COVID-related issues.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you if you represent the company that tells me I'm going to have a better memory from Jellyfish or something.
We don't, but we've blogged about that case a lot.
Have you blogged about that case?
We have.
Is there been a case about it? Because I look at that, keep looking at their ads, thinking, how do they get away with this?
The FTC has sued them. It's actually a really interesting case because the FTC, when they sued them, attached the study that the company had been relying upon and said, this study doesn't prove what they say it proves. And the judge said, well, I don't know, it might, so I dismissed the case. The Second Circuit said, no, that's not the way it works, and the case is still being litigated now a couple of years later. But
interesting.
It was, at first it seemed like a great victory for advertisers, but it didn't last long. The Second Circuit reversed Judge Stanton pretty quickly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. And we are going to get to your blog, but since this is a show about blogging, I also wanted to just ask about something I think some bloggers probably aren't even aware of, is that there are FTC rules that pertain to blogs and influencers in general. And with so many influencers out there right now, have you seen any cases or instances in which the FTC has had to take any kind of an action with regard to influencers or bloggers? Or?
Yeah, they've taken several, and there's several more in the pipeline that I can't talk about. But yes, the FTC follows the money. And if you look at where marketing spend is now, a lot of it is spent on influencers. So we're advising our clients all the time about what influencers need to do, whether it's on social media or blogs, to adequately disclose that they are being compensated for the views that they express, that what the blogger or the person posting on social media, they can't say something about a product that the company couldn't say. So they can't say that this product causes anybody to lose 20 pounds without exercise unless there's competent, reliable scientific evidence that shows that somebody who takes this product is going to lose 20 pounds without exercise or dieting or whatever the claim might be. So it's hard. We've had a bunch of those cases. There's a lot of bloggers who sort of have an outlaw mentality, and there's bad boy type things, and they don't necessarily want to play by the rules. And we've worked with clients that some of these times these people have to get terminated because if you're paying somebody to promote your product, you're essentially responsible for what they say or don't say.
Right. And one of the keys, right, is disclose on the blogger part. I mean, if somebody has sent you something of value and you write about them and you're writing whatever, you need to disclose that they've given you something of value. Right?
Sure. I mean, the whole reason that influencer marketing or social media marketing can be very effective and very powerful is, if to the extent that people still watch broadcast TV and a commercial comes on, everybody knows that's a commercial.
Right.
Right. And the FCC's view is when that commercial comes on, everyone sort of turns a switch in their mind, exercises some healthy skepticism over what's said in the commercial because they know it's a commercial. But if you're reading a blog or you're reading a post on Instagram and somebody's talking about something, the FTC's view is that the consumer might not know that. Now, I think the world's changing. I mean, I have a 16-year-old daughter. She has several friends who, when they grow up, want to be influencers. I mean, when I was 16 years old, there was no such thing as an influencer.
Right.
It was a long time ago. There's no such thing as the internet when I was 16 years old.
When I was 16, there was no electricity. So
exactly right. But I think over time people are starting to realize that all these Instagram celebrities or TikTok celebrities or other social media celebrities who promote these products are being paid to do that. And over time, how that's disclosed may soften a little. But right now, the FTC's view is, consumers don't know that, and so it has to be very clearly and conspicuously disclosed that you're being paid to say nice things about a product.
Yeah. That's interesting, and we could have a whole other conversation about that because I have some thoughts about that, but
Sure.
we'll hold that for another day.
Yeah.
But
talk about whatever you want.
Well, let's talk about your blog, All About Advertising Law, and you're the editor of this blog. So what does that mean? You have a group of people who are writing for it, and you're the kind of the point person in charge of it, or?
What does that mean? It means I do a lot of the I do a lot of the idea generation. So, I follow the FTC very, very closely. I follow class action developments involving advertising very closely. And when I see something that I think ought to be on the blog, I commandeer or request volunteers for one of our associates, one of our partners, to help me with a blog or to do the blog themselves. And then also others in our group come to me and say, saw this case, think it's a great blog, and we'll make sure we don't have a conflict, which is frustrating. Sometimes the things that we want to blog about mention our clients, or our clients who have very strict guidelines about, being mentioned in blog posts. So we have to work around that. If our client has just gotten sued by the FTC, we're probably not going to be blogging about that case.
Right.
If we've won a case against the FTC for one of our clients, we probably will. But that's it all depends on the client. We've had victories
Right.
where the client would not let us blog about it, and that's the client.
So even if you've been successful on behalf of a client, are you getting the client's consent before you write about them?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you do not want the client to know that you've written about them for the first time when they see your blog.
When they read about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so do you have are there a regular roster of people within the firm who are writing, or are you kind of running around the virtual halls these days looking for
Both.
volunteers?
There are some people who are generally pretty good. And then I press the younger associates, especially, to write. First off, it makes sense for them to do that. But one of the best ways, I think, to learn something is to be forced to speak about it or write about it. I mean, you might think you know something, but if you actually have to write about it or you have to speak about it, it requires you to learn to a degree and to understand to a degree that just sort of thinking you know something doesn't involve. So I view blogging and reading our blog as sort of one of the core things that our younger associates need to do to develop as lawyers.
Yeah, it's got to be good exposure for them, right? I mean, not just both within the firm and externally.
Absolutely. And look, we that's the reason we do the blog, right? It's not just it's to be a service to our clients who enjoy it, but I'm probably anticipating something you're going to ask me, but I've gotten business. Somebody calls you out of the blue. You're like, how'd you find me? And they're like, well, Google. And then I saw that you had written about this issue, which is the problem that I'm facing, or you seem like you know a lot about this because of the things I've read on your blog. So, I think it's an incredibly worthwhile investment for the firm and for our younger associates. And, they get comfortable writing. Then we also do monthly webinars. We try and push them out there to do those as well, because the only way you get better at speaking is to speak.
Right. Well, you're right. I was going to ask you that question about whether you ever got business from the blog, and now you've answered that one.
Yeah. In the this year, I guess probably several matters, some big, some small, where clearly the blog might not have been the only reason, but it was certainly a reason that someone ultimately called me or emailed me.
Yeah.
And it's more important now. I mean, historically, we would go speak at conferences or attend conferences and meet people that way. Well, that's certainly not doing the face-to-face dinners and, cocktail hours. I mean, we've done some virtual conferences. We put on some, we've spoken at some, but it's harder to meet people that way. So, trying to bolster your web presence, I think, is incredibly important.
Yeah, I think this has been a year in which a number of blogs have seen real increases in their readership and traffic for that very reason, that people are suddenly looking more online for resources they might have looked to other places for prior to this year. So I was trying to figure out I always like to go back and try and figure out the history or the genesis of a blog. And it looked to me like this blog was started. You weren't the originator of this blog, right? Some others who brought this into the firm, I think even from another firm where it was going before.
That's correct.
And then so at what point did you get involved in it, and how did that happen?
Um, as soon as I joined the firm, I don't remember exactly how long after I joined the firm we started the blog, but it was about the same time. And I started
2012 was the first post I could find, if that helps.
and I joined Venable
Yeah.
in March or May of 2012. So yeah, the blog and I arrived about the same time. And I was very active blogging, especially on FTC related matters from the start. So the folks who started the blog ended up moving on, and I took over editorship of the blog at that point a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And was that, had you already been blogging in any way prior to joining the firm or prior to getting involved with this blog? Did you have any background?
I was at the FTC prior to
Yeah.
joining the firm. So I did a ton of speaking. I would go speak to church groups or large conferences. I just, I like to get out and talk to people. I find it, stimulating. But there's, an official FTC blog on consumer protection issues that Leslie Fair, pushes out. And, that's what she does. That's her job. That's, she does that and speak. That's all she does. So I wasn't going to get my own blog at the FTC. But again, because I did so much speaking, it again forced me to become familiar with a host of issues that the FTC touches. So when I got to Venable, I knew a lot about a lot of different things that the FTC does, and that provided good fodder for the blog.
Yeah. And are you, I just totally lost my train of thought. I was going to say that I noticed that the people who started it have since left the firm. I think they've now got another blog at another firm, pretty much on similar issues. So how does the blog fit within the firm? Does the firm have other blogs? Is the firm supportive of the blog and of your efforts?
Yeah, very supportive. I think ours is one of the more vigorous blogs. I mean, as far as publication, the frequency of publication. Other groups do more alerts or do e-newsletters. I think lots of groups in the firm do webinars and things like that.
Right.
But the firm is incredibly supportive. We've got a business development person who helps us get it up, right, so that clear conflicts, get the thing proofread, get the thing published, and then it gets folded into a newsletter that we send out every 2 weeks as well.
Yeah. So are you personally involved in kind of promoting it and getting it out there, or you're leaving that to the marketing or biz dev people and you're putting up the content?
I try and make sure we have content, that the content's appropriate. But as far as the production, I don't have anything to do that, nor do I want to. I've got more than enough to do.
Yeah. So who are you? You mentioned earlier that you're doing this for clients and potential clients, but is that primarily your audience? Is that who you're targeting this at?
Well, it's always funny. Sometimes I'll go into the FTC for a meeting and they'll like or they won't like something that we've written recently about one of their cases. And that's always it can be funny, it can be a little uncomfortable.
So they're reading it.
They're reading it, which I take as a compliment. We know who reads it. It's not a secret. You guys help us figure that out. We know other law firms read it, and that's fine. I read other law firms' blogs sometimes.
Yeah.
But our goal audience are our clients and people who we would like to be our clients. And it's interesting. We try to write it, and it's hard for both lawyers and non-lawyers, right? So a decent number of our clients don't have general counsels. We are their general counsel, or they've got some other lawyer that for their corporate work they might use. But for this might be the first advertising investigation they've ever had, first FTC investigation they've ever had. So we try to write it at a level that can appeal both to people who are fairly savvy in the area, but also people who are just trying to get their heads around what does the FTC do? How does it do it? Why does it do it? What are the issues? What are the risks? And so that requires some work. Sometimes I get content from really smart young associates. I'm like, this is great, but we're not writing a law review article here. We don't need string cites and things like that. We need something that, tells the reader, this is why this is important. This is what it might mean for you. If you got more questions, you ought to call us. That's ultimately, that's the formula I try to follow.
Yeah. And have you come to, over the years of doing this, come to sort of an idea in your mind about the right style or length or format for a blog post, in addition to using, plain English and not having string cites and
I try to be funny. My kids are frequently telling me that I'm not. And
kids are good for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the firm is frequently telling me that it's, I don't care whether it's funny, but we can't, we can't say that. So it's every once in a while things will sneak through and I'll be delighted that I got something into a blog. But I would say, I think our blog used to be funnier. But it just, so much of the funny stuff got spiked that it became harder. Though there was a recent case we wrote about involving advertising litigation between two companies that make rangefinders for golf. I am an avid but horrible golfer. One of our associates is an avid but pretty good golfer. So we used lots of golf rhetoric and jokes and made fun of our own golfing abilities. And that was actually a fun one to write. And we got a lot of great feedback just from people who thought it was amusing. So that was fun.
Yeah. So how much of the actual writing are you doing versus the oversight and editing and idea generation?
It goes up and down. There are certain issues that I follow very, very closely. So, there's a challenge right now with the Supreme Court about the FTC's 13B authority and what that means and whether it's going to continue. And, we're litigating that issue in 3 other cases right now. So I am really hands-on if we're going to be writing about that, because first off, I've taken positions in litigation that I want to make sure we're consistent with. And it's an issue that I've followed closely for years. One of the first things I wrote about when I got to Venable was, how does the FTC do this with 13B when the language doesn't necessarily command the result that the FTC has achieved thus far, using that language. So in those things, I'll be very, very hands-on and do a decent amount of writing or rewriting. Other issues, I'll be fairly hands-on. I'll make sure what's written is appropriate, makes sense, is on topic. But we'll let it go. And like a lot of things in life, it's also going to depend on how much other stuff I've got going on. If I've got a week's worth of depositions, I'm going to have to take a light touch on the blog that week.
Right. How do you balance your time? I mean, if I had this right, you're chair of the marketing and advertising marketing group there. You've got a law practice to attend to. How do you balance the time and make that work with your schedule?
I try to delegate as much as I can. I think one of the things that, as you become more senior in a law firm, the people who are most successful are the ones who are really good at appropriate delegation, right? I mean, and it's an art. It's not a science. And sometimes I should have been more hands-on there. And other times you're like, I wasted a lot of time doing this that I should have had somebody else do it. So, as head of the group and as someone who now has a fairly vigorous practice, one of the most important things I need to do is identify talent, and not just who's smart, but who's good at what, right? So, I mean, there's certain people who are really good at the blog. So I'll, if I need something turned around quickly, I'm like, can you write this up? You know how I like to say things at this point, you like the tone we like to take. And it's great. And if it's something we really need a fast turnaround on because it's topical, we want it to blog out tomorrow because, we think our competitors are going to be out tomorrow. We want to be timely. If it's something that's not quite so time sensitive, I'm more likely to give it to somebody a little less experienced so they have the ability to do it. And it might take 4 or 5 drafts. I mean, there's one I'm going to turn to tonight that I think we're on our 4th or 5th draft. If it was really timely, I wouldn't have had this more junior associate do it. I would have had somebody more senior and it had been published already. So, but that same sort of triage, we do it in cases, the things that are a little less time sensitive, you try and let younger attorneys do them so they can learn. things that have to get done overnight or in a hurry, you need somebody more senior frequently.
Yeah. So when you came to the firm in 2012 and started getting involved with this blog, and before you were actually the editor of it, did you see the value of it right away, or did you see it as a chore or a bother or something you had to do?
Well, no, I thought it was incredibly valuable, right? So I'm coming from the government, which means I'm bringing zero portable business with me. So I need to develop a book of business. I need to be known. So writing about the FTC, I was going to a lot of conferences, speaking about advertising FTC issues. I mean, that's how I spent a decent chunk of my time when I first got to the firm. So the birth of the blog and my arrival, the timing was awesome. And, it was a great way to raise your profile.
Yeah.
Both internally and externally.
Yeah. And have there been other benefits to your career? I mean, you've mentioned that you've actually gotten clients because of the blog, and it's raised your profile. Have you seen any other benefits to your own career by doing the blog or through the blog?
Well, like I said before, one of the best ways to understand something is to have to write about it. So,
Right.
Writing about it or editing it helps. And once a week, once every 2 weeks, I'll be wrestling with someone will ask me a question. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that we blogged about this, and there's a decent search function on our blog, and I'll find that, yeah, there was this case that dealt with, appropriate disclosures for endorsements or something like that, or that one of the commissioners wrote a dissent that took a kind of harsh view of something. And so frequently it's one of the first places I go when I'm trying to find something. I go to the FTC website or I go to our blog because, they're both pretty searchable and can be, great tools.
Yeah. Well, your answer just hit on two themes that I've heard a number of times in doing these interviews for this show, and that I've seen in my own experience, which is one thing I've often said is that blogging makes you smarter, because for the same reason you said, you're forced to really understand an issue in order to write about it, and it also forces you into this routine of keeping up with what's going on in your field. Again, as you said earlier. And then the other interesting thing about blogs, when you do them over time, is you do build up. It's a knowledge management tool. Effectively, you build up
Absolutely.
this body of information that you can then go back and reference at any time. And I've heard people tell me about my blog, and I'm sure you've probably heard this too. That people come and say, I knew that had been something that happened at some point in time, and I went back and searched your blog or searched for what you had written about it. So.
But I will become a little frustrated sometimes when I'll be talking to an associate about something, and I'm like, go look at you read the blog we wrote last week about this topic, right? And they're like, you got to read the blog. I mean, it's sort of required reading for our young associates. So hopefully, I think that message has now gotten through because it does help.
Yeah. Is there other advice that you give to the associates that you work with when they start to work with the firm? I mean, you've talked a little bit about some of the writing style and that sort of thing. What else do you tell them about how to be an effective or successful blogger?
That's a good question. What they struggle with, but what's really important is to understand, why is this important? Okay. So, this case came out, the FTC's brought lots of dietary supplement cases. Why is this blog worthy? Well, how is this going to change our client's thought process or their decision? We need to call Venable to get some advice on this. This is a change. So getting them to look more broadly, and that's one of the things you see as associates progress. When they first get here, a lot of them are I was told to research this issue, and they research this issue, and they either the partners or the senior associates don't explain to them why this issue is important for this case or for this question the clients asked, or they don't ask. And a lot of times it's on the associate to ask. So the associates who are good bloggers also are generally very good lawyers because they're good at spotting issues and connecting things that might not at first and most obvious blush be connected. And when you can start connecting dots for clients, you really add value. And so that's something I think that the associates learn over time as they become more experienced. They've got a better knowledge base, and they can, start putting things together, which allows you to see forward a little more accurately as well.
Yeah. So they develop the ability to see which stories are blog worthy or which ones are important. And then it sounds like you're saying also the ability to explain that in the blog post to the reader as to why you're writing about this and why it's important.
Exactly.
What else? I've been asking you lots of questions. We're getting near the end of the time, but what are there any other thoughts or advice that you have on blogging that we haven't talked about?
Not really. I mean, I think the most important thing is to just keep doing it, right? I mean, look, I end up doing a lot of it very early in the morning or late at night because, during the day I'm responding to emails, I'm on Zooms, I'm on calls, I'm in court, I'm in depositions, I'm trying to turn drafts around. So, it's a sacrifice, but I view it as an investment. And, I think it's an important investment in, brand building, knowledge building, practice building. Yeah.
Have you ever had a blog post that is I don't know, that maybe you've regretted or that has elicited a stronger than you would have ever anticipated kind of a reaction?
I remember very clearly walking into the FTC for a meeting and being told in certain terms that they didn't like something we had written. And this was someone who I knew well, I had worked with when I was there. But he had a good sense of humor, and we agreed to disagree. We've had, FTC commissioners cite the blog in public comments they made, which I took as a great compliment. Regret? No, I mean, I try to, I'll make wise ass remarks in the blog, but I try not to make them at somebody's expense. Okay. So that, because the world's round and things come around.
Yeah. Unless it's your own expense talking
no,
about
my
golfing.
own expense, that's fine. I'm more than happy to make fun of myself. Everyone else does at my house.
Yeah. Good. Well, I'm sure you have a great handicap in your blogging career, if not your golfing career. So, Len, thank you very much. I really appreciate.
This was fun, Bob. Thank you.
You're doing this. It's been great to talk to you and hear about your blog. And reminder to our viewers and listeners that we've been talking to Leonard Gordon about the blog All About Advertising Law, which is at allaboutadvertisinglaw.com if you wondered where you might find it. Exactly. Again, a reminder that you can find all of our past episodes on YouTube at youtube.com/LexBlog. And Len, stay safe, stay well.
You do the same.
All
right. Thank you very much. Great talking to you.
Thanks a lot. We will be back next week, same time, same place with another great legal blogger.